Hey, how you doing? Pretty good. Really don't give a crap. Click. Hey everybody, welcome to this version of reality yet again. I am Liamo All-Star, and here next to me is Saever, or Liam and Alan, depending what you want us to be called. Say hi, Al.
Hi, Al.
And we're off to a great start already. Big fights and crazy comedy nights. That's the theme of this one. We had a tremendously expensive, inflated fight. You might have known it as the Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather fight. We actually went and saw it at a local theatre because we won tickets to see it at a local theatre. Oh my goodness gracious me. It was pretty good considering that it could have gone either way, considering that Conor McGregor has really got no professional boxing experience, and Floyd Money Mayweather was allegedly supposed to be done and retired, and the whole thing was really just one publicity stunt. But I invited Alan along because I had some free tickets. Interesting thing about that, my mummy won 2 tickets to see the Conor McGregor Mayweather fight, and then she won 2 more tickets to the fight, but she won 4 tickets because 2 tickets she won using her name and 2 tickets won using my name, but she gave the same mobile number, so she got a phone call saying, "Congratulations, you've just won 2 tickets," and then another phone call, "Is Liam there?" And it's like, oh no, did he win as well? And of course, everyone that I know who wanted to go to the fight, who loves watching a good fight, either had kids, or was busy, or was sleeping, was working on a weekend. So I had no choice but to drag Alan along. Well, not so much drag him along. You wanted to come along, right?
It's free. Free's good.
Free is very good. And it can say we are not suckers. Everyone who paid to see that fight, everyone who bet on that fight, everyone who paid those thousands of dollars to actually go there and see it live, congratulations. Your money went to a great cause. Their freaking bank accounts. Yeah. So how many boxing fights have you seen in your time?
1.
One, and that was the only one.
That was the one.
And what did you think of it?
I especially like the part where that guy hit the other guy in the face.
That guy? Which guy? There was really only one guy doing it for a while, wasn't there?
The Irishman.
Yeah, you're proving your knowledge right now. It's sort of a role reversal right now. Usually you're the IT guy who's informing me of facts. Now it's the opposites. Now I'm the one with all the fact checking and you're the one with the opinion, which is quite different to our last podcast where you were on the phone saying, no, it's Edie McClurg, not Eddie McClurg, you dumbass, and probably muttering under his breath. Now I get to do that. Oh, but by all means, continue with your thoughts.
That's it.
Don't have much more to say.
Isn't that boxing? They punch each other in the face a few times.
Not always.
They get onto the edge and have a little cuddle.
It doesn't sound like we're discussing boxing anymore.
my last relationship, actually.
No comment.
Yes, and then the ref comes in and breaks them up, and then they go back into the middle and start all over.
Just like your last relationship. Okay, whatever. We should stick to topic and not veer away, otherwise we could be up for a lawsuit maybe. Oh dear. But just a little, because Alan here, first ever boxing fight. There was a big build-up. Are you actually aware of the build-up, or is that pretty much the only part of it? Because this has been anticipation since 2015. I'll just give you a little bit of background using information from the internet, so hopefully it's accurate. But the fight that was being promoted was against Chad Mendes, where Conor McGregor was on the Conan O'Brien show, and the question was actually posed to him if he would ever take on Money Mayweather in a boxing match, and the answer was duh. And quoted as saying, if you're asking would I, maybe I should put on the Irish accent. If you're asking if I would like to fight Floyd Mayweather, I mean, who would not like to fight and dance around the ring for 180 million? McGregor said. I should probably switch back to my accent now. Oh dear. So basically, one person saying, yeah, I could kick his ass.
You made him sound like a leprechaun.
I don't want to get into that right now in case I get sued for some form of defamation. You know, actually, I made a sort of note about that, is that, you know the movie Elf?
Mm-hmm.
With, what's his name?
Tall curly hair guy, yeah.
Will Ferrell, yeah, that's the guy. And how he's a human raised by elves.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor. Leprechauns. You do the math. It's a joke, Connor. Please don't come and hit me. Oh, no, wait. Actually, you know what? If you're going to pay me millions of dollars, come on, hit me. Hit me once. No one just hit me.
I think they heard it.
Oh, I've had worse. I actually Tanya Harding myself the other day. I wonder if anyone else gets that reference, because I used it in a stand-up routine. People didn't get it. And when I was introducing myself on stage, and I said it to Alan, he didn't get the reference. My mummy got the reference. Maybe because she's over 50 and it happened a while ago. But yeah, I basically rolled my ankle, busted it, and been sort of limping around, working through the pain. What am I even talking about? It's my personal life. We're supposed to be discussing the background of the fight. January 4th, 2016, discussing with fellow boxer Mayweather used Ronda Rousey and McGregor as examples of how racism is still pervasive in sports. So we're using two people in UFC that are basically propping up, and it was never about race, I don't believe. I mean, sure, there was gender that was propped up with regards to Ronda Rousey's prominence in the UFC, because remember the fight we went to see in Victoria, that Ronda Rousey fight where she unfortunately lost. Big kick to the face. But the fact that, you know, the women have even been given a platform and they've really stepped up their game, and now there's like 3 women's titles where there used to only be 1, and even then that was just a battle and a half. But I guess Mayweather just pretty much talking, and McGregor firing back on Twitter on January the 5th, the very next day, saying that he never bring race into his success again. Or as he quoted, don't bring race into my success again. So basically Conor saying, yeah, because he's Irish, and, not putting the debate there to say who had it worse in the history of race. Did the Irish have it worse than the Africans? I would say definitely not, but race certainly had nothing to do with success, so probably a fair call, wouldn't you agree? Maybe, probably. Just 2 people really just having a spat about each other. And on May the 3rd, people saying no one cared. Then tabloids picking up that on May the 6th, that it could be on the verge of $1 billion fight. The very same day, rather, saying Dana White, the president of UFC, saying it's just a tabloid story, and at the time pretty much was. May 9, Mayweather pretty much saying it's possible regardless of what Dana White says. May 11th, Dana White saying he hasn't been talking to anyone, blah blah blah, basically saying nope, not going to happen. Mayweather then saying he's happily retired as of May 16th, would only consider coming back for a fight with McGregor. So now they're both talking, now they're both hyping up saying, I could kick his ass, I could kick your ass. Who gives a crap as long as they're paying for it? And, well, I guess that's when money started going on the table, because TMZ then reported on May the 20th of 2016 that he offered McGregor $50 million for a bout. And, well, then McGregor said that he needs me, I don't need him. Keeping on talking to each other, they're posting back and forth, mock-up posters done, and McGregor just basically talking back and forth, nothing really happening, and, you know, Mayweather saying essentially that he put the finishing touches on the Irishman. And then eventually McGregor saying he's running around the Showtime offices begging for those executives to come up with $100 million cash for me to fight me. So as soon as he gets my money, we can fight. And that's what it pretty much ended up being, a guaranteed purse. I mean, it started off as, I think it was only going to be a smaller sum, not $100 million, but it was a guaranteed purse of $100 million for Conor McGregor to fight Floyd Money Mayweather, and Mayweather ended up getting $300 million for that fight, just to fight each other. Like nothing but just fighting. McGregor then gets his boxing license. Mayweather calls McGregor's decision to get a boxing license a calculated effort to gain more fans, more trash talk. Odds makers then posts and say, you know, the booking say, all right, well, if it does happen, here are the odds. Mayweather is now on board. Conor is now on board. They're putting offers out. Now Dana White comes in January and makes Mayweather a counter offer of $25 million for each fighter. So now people are putting money down on the table just to see two people fight. So now it's pretty much happening. What do we think about all this? A lot of people putting down money saying he could beat him, he could beat him. Does anyone really care?
I think people do.
I think the fact that we got to that point at all, definitely people cared, but putting down a lot more money than perhaps they should have. I mean, $25 million. What could $25 million buy you?
It actually, the whole thing does remind me a little bit of early slave labor. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that they chucked people in a ring and paid to see it. I imagine a lot of rich white cotton farmers sitting around the ring back then. It wasn't too dissimilar at these days. The first 3 rows are always populated by people in suits, and the subsequent 80 rows behind that are full of drunk people. Mm-hmm. Yes. Interesting times. I was actually a little disappointed about the announcer, the ref. He didn't come into it with as much enthusiasm as he probably should have.
Well, he was an old guy. I mean, do you really want to step between two boxes that could possibly knock your clock off?
No, even when he was on the microphone, he was...
he was kind of polite, but stern.
For a $400 million fight, put some enthusiasm behind it.
Yeah, like get in there, you know, just... I don't know. Well, I think the referee did an okay job. It's sort of skipping ahead because... And I'm skipping right ahead of all this other jargon because it's all just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. June 15, finally, after years of back and forth. Even the article says, yeah, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. He's saying this, he's saying that, blah, blah, blah. Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor is a reality. So the fantasy fight now comes to reality. And August 26th, in what will most likely be lucrative fight, the most lucrative fight in combat sports history. Was it though? Most lucrative? Define lucrative. Can we define lucrative?
A lot of money.
A lot of money. I guess that's pretty lucrative. So, the build-up to the fight, they had all these media conferences. They basically built up a tour and said, you know, they sold out arenas just on the hype, just on them touring. and going around and basically like advertising this fight. They made a lot of money. They pretty much went around and advertised the fight and said, you know, they had each other, you know, basically had time on the podium where they would basically cut promos on each other. And my goodness, I mean, Conor McGregor just was in full form. I mean, did you actually, because they advertised the whole thing on TV, it was on the airwaves, but did you actually catch any of that by any chance?
I saw a few promos. I did avoid it somewhat. I'm not the biggest boxing fan. But yes, it was hard to avoid some of the hype beforehand.
Yeah, it was all over, especially when Conor McGregor, in the second media appearance, basically got out there on the stage and got the whole crowds to chant, "Fuck the Mayweathers." The whole crowds in the entire arena. And I'm sorry I had to say it because that's what he said. Probably should put that at the beginning. There will be some swearing perhaps. Because you can't not quote Conor McGregor in that fashion, in that sense, and you know, because the Irishman. And basically he was up on the stage, his suit, his tailored suit, you know how they got the pinstripes on the suit?
Yes.
He read "fuck you" along the pinstripes of his suit. You know. And then he's walking around on stage, he's swaggering around, it's like, "My, it's good to be alive." And well, I'll just give this a quick. So I got it pulled up now, and basically the very first one, he comes up on stage. Don't know if you can actually hear it or not.
I couldn't hear anything those motherfuckers said. Thanks, fuck. This boxing press conference is a completely different setup than we're used to. But 20,000 people, it's mind blowing. I'm absolutely honored.
So by all means, offer any commentary at any time. Alan just seems bloody bored right now.
Somebody's O has got to go.
But yeah, he's the first one.
He can't even afford a shoe anymore.
But this is just how freaking wild it was. It gets worse as it goes along.
There's no other way about it. His little legs, his little core, his little head. I'm gonna knock him out inside 4 rounds, mark my words.
Now, we saw the fight. Everyone by now knows what happens. But still.
I always said, I will eventually rise up and be in association with. If you zoom in right there over my left shoulder, you can see on the poster, McGregor Sports and Entertainment. I rose up and I became in association with. What can I say? I'm a young, confident, happy man that has worked extremely hard for this. I have worked very, very hard for this. So I am just up here embracing everything. Nobody's gonna do nothing. Nobody can do nothing up here to me. I can do what the fuck I want up here.
Looks like he's running for president.
He might as well be, because he's got the whole damn country on his side and he's not even American.
And that's it. As far as the fight, he will be unconscious inside.
I can see him
4
taking
rounds.
Trump.
The movement, the
Oh, I think anyone could take Trump right now.
He's not experienced this. He's fought people who have shied away from him. I don't fear him. I don't fear this limited set of fighting. This is a limited set of rules that makes this half a fight, a quarter of a fight. This isn't a true fight. If this was a true fight, it wouldn't even take 1 round.
That's, given what we saw, I have to certainly agree, but
How's this suit look?
if I could just interject between this little recording and that, it's safe to say that the way it went, probably the worst mistake you could do is agree to a boxing match with Floyd Mayweather, because that's playing into his real... Yeah, basically, Floyd pretty much controlled the entire environment the entire time. He didn't really ever lose control, and I guess going in, if it was in a UFC ring, seeing the way Floyd, the way he, his stance and his fighting style and everything, he probably wouldn't have lasted very long in the UFC ring. But then, I definitely got to say, I mean, back in the day, people would argue, with the prominence of Mike Tyson being the most dangerous man on the planet and really bringing boxing right up into dangerous spectacle. But, I mean, you've seen a few UFC fights. What would you say would be more violent, UFC or boxing?
Boxing.
Why? Seriously?
I've never seen an ear bitten off in UFC before.
But there are a lot of times in UFC where a lot of strikes, limbs are broken, and no punishment for it. Basically, what happens is, you get an armbar, you break their arm accidentally, well, you still won the fight. There's no disqualification. They should have tapped out quicker. You get a bloody mess, just seal up the cut and move on, People broken orbital bones and stuff and, broken jaws and crap, keep fighting. I mean, boxing might be more dangerous in terms of what could happen because you basically two people always on their feet. But UFC's definitely, I'd say, definitely more of a liability considering what you can do in UFC versus what you can do in boxing.
You can suffer minor injuries in UFC.
He's basically talking in the first one, but I want to try and... Okay, so we'll skip ahead to Mayweather and his, because the first one of the media conference, it was just more talking than anything else. Like, this was, because they toured all around.
They're promoting themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard work! Hard work! Hard work!
So that is him hyping himself up.
All work is what? All work is what? We'll point you to easy work there.
So he's pretty much claiming that, he's stepping into a boxing ring. He has no place being in there. They're both basically saying to each other, you've got no chance. It'll be finished quicker than you imagine.
21 is the number. And they say, why is 21 the number? Because that's how long I've been kicking ass.
Yeah, and you can see Conor McGregor just sitting there laughing like,
I don't give a fuck if it's a ring. I don't give a fuck if it's an octagon. Put me in there and I'm going to kick ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wouldn't take
He would
him
not
in the
step in the
octagon.
octagon. And he would only step in there perhaps if he got the entourage. Like, Floyd, great fighter, but
All work is what?
he's conditioned to boxing. The rules fit him in boxing. And it's really just not an environment that anyone can just walk into the UFC, although there have been people that have, and it hasn't gone very well for them, unfortunately. But then sometimes you got some, the times where people just walk in there and they lose in seconds, and they're trained UFC fighters have been going for years, and then you get two professional UFC fighters training for years, and they last the distance, but they shouldn't because they suck. Like, remember that fight we saw, the very first fight in the main card at UFC with the Ronda Rousey, Holly Holm? That was awful.
There were a lot of awful fights that day.
They were good ones, but they were in the other cards. The main card, not really, sort of underwhelming, unfortunately.
But at least none of the boxers seemed afraid of hitting each other.
Let me show you motherfuckers what $100 million fighter look like.
So he pulls out a check.
And they need every
Big deal. You don't see me walking around without pants.
The tax man. You're right. I'm the IRS, and I'm gonna tax your ass. I'm not gonna do shit.
So pretty much just all back and forth, even in the media, the conference tour, just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Promos here, promos there. The first one really just underwhelming, but the hype was really the Toronto one, I believe it was. And I'm going to pull it up right now because that will wake Alan back up. That'll wake the audience back up and probably stop them from fast forwarding through this just to get to it. He's touching the table. Ah, dear, dear, dear. This one here was the one that got everyone talking about the fight. This one right here, this is an ad. It's getting people talking. It is stupid ads.
Alright, let's get this show started!
Fake. Shut up, Dana.
Well, then,
Dana's a
fuck
guy.
that mic.
So they turned his mic off. And this is the one,
Count of three.
this is what I was talking about.
In this arena to scream at the top of your lungs. Fuck the Mayweathers. 1, 2, 3.
So he's basically hyping that crowd up like nothing else. There's sold out
We can do better than
millions of dollars just for the tour.
count to three.
Not even the fight. They sold out an entire freaking arena.
Mayweathers.
When does that ever happen?
1, 2, 3.
He's too focused on it now. Alan's gone from being half asleep to, oh my god.
He won't do
What a big
shit.
mouth.
You fucking nothing.
Like, he rips on everyone. He rips on even the Showtime producers.
Showtime too.
See there, just on cue.
Look at you, you little fucking weasel. I can see it in your eyes. You're a fucking bitch.
That, you know, just talk about the hand that feeds you. Cut it right off right there.
My mic off. Cut the champ's mic off. Hell no. You fucking weasel and you fucking bitch.
So that's where he pointed to Floyd Mayweather and called him a bitch. There's been a lot of bitch comments. Have you ever been called a bitch?
They're trying to set me up at every
Never?
show now.
Never.
Never?
Never.
I don't think I've been.
Catch me off
I
guard.
think I have.
Trying to see me
It's
in
meant to be some sort of demoralizing
But I
term.
thrive in uncomfortable
We called him.
positions.
We called him male bitch, which is weird.
Man, bitch.
There is nothing
A male
you can
bitch,
do
like a
to
male
face
female
me.
dog,
28
basically.
years of age. I'm getting fight checks.
Hermaphrodite.
Something like that. So hermaphrodite dog, yeah.
He was on Oscar De La Hoya's undercard.
Hey,
And that's
hey,
just
hey.
facts.
We could get to that next bit because I know it's coming up. You could just feel it. I mean, he's hyping the crowd up.
Too long down.
He's just quite a character.
What's up, Ireland?
But this hype towards the fight was just amazing. We'd get.
Floyd is an old
He does actually remind me of the leprechaun from American Gods.
So this is.
I want you to sing it to me, and I want you to dance.
I want to scroll forward to get closer to the fight, to the point, but you can't not just take a listen
I'm
and,
not fucking leaving.
like, you just. I can't quote it better than this, better than him.
50 strippers on his payroll this man has. What the fuck is he doing with that strip club? What
Because
the
he owns a
fuck?
strip club, apparently.
50 stripper bitches on his payroll. Shout out to all the stripper bitches on his payroll.
So what?
At least Rob Kardashian only had one. He has 50.
So, you know.
I'm not getting off this mic. I want him to come and take this mic off me. Otherwise, I'm taking over this whole shit.
There's this Alan just sort of standing there right now. I don't think he really knows what to think. I mean, have you seen this before?
An Irish guy swearing? Absolutely.
Toronto, what a fucking city. What a city. What a city.
You know, they say all this stuff, but it is just shameless self-promoting. After the match, they're all, "Oh, best buddies, you did great. No, you did great." But I don't think it would have been as big of a draw if they weren't shamelessly promoting themselves.
Like in here, basically promoting themselves up. I'm trying to get forward to the part. Brief coughing fit from Alan aside and editing that will make sure that nobody ever heard it.
They said he kicks too hard. Too many weapons. The Irishman's gonna fall short. He doesn't stand a hope. It took me 13 seconds.
So that was his fight against Jose Aldo, where he basically became... where he won the UFC championship, the featherweight title. And they were saying he has no chance. It was this fight that he won, and that basically title that he never actually defended either. He became the champion, he never defended it, he had to forfeit it. Because then he jumped up to lightweight division, won that title, and he's holding it right now, hasn't defended it.
He tip-top toes to a decision. He's never even fought a day in his life. He's a runner. He's boxing's biggest bitch.
Is he wrong? I mean, he does do a lot of... But then again, strategic fighting, it did work. This is the bit. This is... We're getting to it. This is what got everyone talking. Like, really talking.
What the fuck is he wearing? He looks like a little breakdancer or something. A little 12-year-old breakdancer, bitch. What the fuck? He's 40. You're 40 years of age. Dress your fucking age. Carrying a school bag on stage. What are you doing with a school bag on stage? You can't even read.
Oh, Jesus.
40 years old carrying a school bag.
I've seen this several times, but I mean, I can't say
I love you all. Thank you all so much. It's an honor for me to come here. It's a fucking honor.
I can't say that I respect everything that he said, but I can say that it was definitely funny either way. And Floyd did have his retorts, and the crowd did not really receive it as well as Conor. They kind of booed him every time he went up there. But Toronto's always a very honest and very interesting crowd.
One thing we do know. One thing we do know. The fucking fans can't fight for you. Shut your fucking mouth.
We've just lost our G and PG rated audience, if we ever had one.
Being at the top, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, motherfucker, 21 years.
That's him saying, yep, 21 versus his, whatever.
Yeah! And they said, I'm the motherfucker that can't read. Bitch, I do numbers. I make money. You know my middle name, bitch. You owe money.
He said he owes money to taxes.
Let me see the bag.
And then he pulls out this little school bag. But this is where Conor gets him again and just... he goes over and he goes into his bag and pulls out what's inside.
The bag got books, and we're going to show you what the books look like. If you believe in yourself like you say you yourself? Bitch your whole fight check, you bitch. No fucking problem.
Yeah.
Send the contract, kid. It's done.
So then he goes, so then he's waltzing all around the stage, and then
Let me see what it look like.
he pulls out a wad of cash.
Grab
Like,
one, let me see what it look like. See if this bitch wanna bet this. Do what you're told, bitch.
it-
Do what you're told.
so this is the executive from Showtime now. And, you know, his entourage as well, pulling out.
You know. You know.
But yeah, this is the one that got...
You know. I like
Ev-
you. You know. You love me. You fucking Egypt. You fucking Egypt. That's the fuck you are. You punk. This your boss, you little bitch.
So he keeps calling him a bitch because he's got nothing else to say. I mean, what would you say about the situation? Like, if someone's calling you a bitch constantly,
Good one.
would you say that he's going in as confident as he did before?
Y'all got the fucking
I don't know if McGregor can really talk about Mayweather's outfit, given that he's wearing a bright blue suit.
Yeah, but it's got the inscribed "fuck you" all over it in the pinstripes.
He couldn't get it in black.
Turn the pressure up. I don't quit.
I don't know.
I don't fold under pressure. I'm the best, and I know I'm the best. Bitch, and you know I'm the best.
We could just skip forward a bit because
He isn't very threatening, though.
not really.
I mean, he's swearing a lot for sure, but
We get to the part.
Fuck is that? The fuck is that? Talking about how tough you is. Talking about you got pride.
So he's going in Dana White's face now,
Real killers don't quit.
and Dana White's just like, "What the hell?"
You don't even know nothing about true fighting. You've never been in there. You're against little boxers afraid. You're against a different animal here, Floyd. Shut the fuck up. Shut your mouth. Shut the fuck up. Shut your mouth.
Just get out of... Yeah, at that point, it's like, you know, they're talking smack to each other. You want them to just go out and fight right now. Because you're talking crap to each other. You just keep talking to each other. It's like, just get it over and done with. And he pulls out an Irish flag. And I don't know what he was originally going to do with it, but he had to back off real quick because Connor, that's when he got up. And now he takes his bag. I mean, they're going to self-describe it in a second.
Look, you do something with that flag, I'll fuck you up.
So now Mayweather doesn't know what to do, so he's just crouching with the flag. I reckon he was going to do something
This
different.
about it.
This is just off the cuff right here.
That's it. That's it. It's about $5,000 in here. It's about $5,000 in here. Fuck me. Just now you do something with that flag. You ain't getting this bag or this money back. I'm gonna fuck you up on this stage.
That's kind of the difference, is that, you know, he's posing with the Irish flag, you know, which really was just kind of the beginning. And, you know, because he's saying, you know, basically, you give me that flag,
Yeah,
or
I'm gonna keep this souvenir. You want me to keep this souvenir? Can I keep this souvenir?
so he ends up giving it to Connor. Connor takes it, and he throws it. He throws his own flag. It's like double standards. Like, you touch that flag, you do that, I'ma kick your ass. That's about as good as it gets. That's pretty much the Toronto promo. The rest of them can be damned, but that was pretty much most of the excerpts from it. But that's the whole idea of what we were stepping into right there. And from that, the best promo, all the discussion, all the talk, compared to the fight, which we'll discuss now. What, any difference in demeanor and attitude, would you say?
as I said before, they postured a lot coming into the fight,
But for all that intensity, was that intensity met by Connor going into the ring? Because I think that he really held back, because he played to stay in the game for a potential endurance run. It's almost as if that he played right into Mayweather's hands. From a tactical standpoint, he intended to go the distance if he needed to, but the problem is that you can't just go into an endurance race with a distance runner. Even if you've done all that amount of training, it's just not going to happen. You got to train for it, and he doesn't have that amount of training. You know, he doesn't have the same ability that Mayweather had to go that distance, and also because he basically ran himself out too soon.
Yeah, he wanted to finish it.
He wanted to get it done within 4 rounds, and he won the first 3 rounds according to all the scorecards. So Conor actually did win the first 3 rounds, and then it started turning by the 4th round. And, you know, Floyd basically doing what he does. You know, the first round they were testing each other out. Second round, you know, Conor was getting some, you know, some decent shots in, but there was no power to it because he couldn't get through. He couldn't commit 100% to the punches because he was boxing him. And Floyd was having trouble with him for at least the first 5-6 rounds because he didn't know, because it was an unorthodox style that Conor was coming in with, and Floyd had to pretty much do what he does best, which is be the defensive fighter, the defensive, you know, evasive circle fighter, and throw really little to no punches, and then eventually get into the game where he grapples and then he gains ground because he, you know, clinches, and then the referee breaks up, and then while the referee's breaking it up, Floyd then, you know, takes a step or 2 forward where the referee doesn't notice or doesn't control it, doesn't even them out back to both sides, and now Floyd's already got the front foot, and then Conor's got to work even harder to push him back again, and then Floyd just clinches. They get pushed back by the rules, and, you know, so Conor was forced to continue to come forward each and every time. So then by the 10th round, I mean, of course he was going to be buggered. He kept going after him. He didn't stop going after him. He kept punching and punching and punching and punching. Floyd really didn't do anything. I mean, it wasn't in terms of a gruesome fight. It was a very tactically interesting fight to watch, because I think even Conor figured it out too late, that because by the last couple of rounds, Conor started using some sideways footwork, but by then his, like he said, you know, his legs were jelly. They were pretty much gone towards the ends, and the referee called the fight, said game over, fight's over. Conor wanted to go the distance, but by then Floyd was landing all the shots to the head, and Conor was pretty much almost defensive at that point.
I would have liked to have seen it go on a bit further. The ref called it mainly due to the fact that he couldn't stand anymore.
Probably. He's like, that's it. I'm bored. I'm on my feet all day.
That's enough. But yeah, no, I would have liked to have seen a bit of finalisation in it.
Because it wasn't an undisputed victory.
No.
It was a technical knockout, which means that throughout history, we're going to be talking about this forever. What if we went the distance? What if this? What if that? Just give us a decisive victory. Someone knock out someone. If that's ultimately the aim of the game, let it go. If, especially because after the fight, I was watching the media conference, and that's where I get the biggest laugh of all, because it looked like from the media conference, they walked in and they were still fresh out of the fight. You know, they'd worked their ass off. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they didn't fight and put the effort in and work hard, and that they probably weren't both thinking, you know, crap, how do I figure this guy out? Because they were both thinking the same, you know. But, you know, Conor took his hat off to, well, if he had a hat, he you know, shat a glass of whiskey and, you know, a toast to Mayweather, and said, you know, he kept his composure the entire time. And Floyd did take his hat off to Conor, and basically that he, you know, he definitely did prove himself out there, but the whole game plan the entire time was to draw it out and go the distance. But when they came to that media conference, they seemed like they still, if, you know, they never really, I don't think they really went into the reserves. Like, they'd exhausted themselves, but they didn't do anything that's like in a fight scenario, if you had nothing to lose and this was it, this is what you wanted, this is what you trained your whole life for, you know, going into it and doing whatever it took to win. Well, I don't think they did everything they could. I think they did what they had to do. And considering the fact that they were getting paid millions of dollars anyway. And the thing that got me laughing the most, which I totally call, was the fact that after the fight, they were hugging each other like they were best mates. And they might as well have just both said at that point in time, we just grifted you all out of billions of dollars, because that fight cards was probably the big. I think it is actually being touted as the biggest in history. In fact, if I look it up right now, and there's a lot of things around saying that it destroyed the Mayweather and Pacquiao record, or at least that's what the claims are stated. But I mean, honest figures are never truly honest figures. People inflate the money and the gate figures all the time to make themselves look more impressive, and then when people actually count how many people actually sat in the seats, because maybe they sold all the tickets, but that doesn't mean that everyone sat in the seats. You know what I mean? You know, the scalper wouldn't exist if they weren't selling tickets that they'd bought previously for an inflated amount. No opinion?
No opinion on scalping, no.
None. No, he's just, But the whole thing was just real interesting. What did you think about him coming out in the entrance where Floyd basically came out wearing the IRA mask?
The balaclava.
Yes. It's like, oh, good God. What the hell?
I don't know if it was so much a reference to
it was
the
a
IRA.
direct reference. You can't get any more direct. Actually, you can.
I'm sure plenty of African American males have worn balaclavas in their time.
Yeah, I think they wear ski masks.
Oh, no, they're the same thing.
Okay, well, I just got educated. A balaclava and a ski mask are the same thing. Who'd have thunk it?
Except without the accent, whatever that was. Yes, well, the whole idea behind keeping your face warm when you're skiing, which people don't really wear them skiing anymore.
It could have been, maybe we're taking this out of context. It could have been because Floyd is bald, whether voluntarily or because hereditary.
He was having a head massage earlier. Maybe he was a bit chilly.
That was creepy. Is just this random chick. He was like lying on this. What do they call those chairs in the old Egyptian time, where they're basically lying on their side, like, yes, indeed, like. I don't know. Yeah, like on perched on those like throne chairs where they're lying on their side and they're getting massage and fed grapes sort of thing. It was just creepy because before the fight, the hype in the fight, you just saw this shot of Mayweather and some woman just stroking his head ever so delicately, massaging it, and it's like, Jesus Christ, what the hell is this? What kind of pay-per-view are we watching now? Is this going to be a fight, or is this going to be one of those things where it turns into one of those movies? Allegedly.
Wow, wow, wow.
Let me just help you out of the robe. Let me give you a pounding. I'm going to take you to the limit. 12 rounds. Allegedly! No, but that was just creepy. I mean, and then the whole pissing contest between the national anthems of the Irish national anthem and then the American national anthem, whatever. I mean, we're from Australia, and, well, I mean, guess patriotism notwithstanding, does anyone really, care that much about how well... I mean, we care when a national anthem is poorly presented and poorly performed, but just to really try and just use the national anthem as that point to just drive it home, and the fireworks and the jets and this and that and the streams, and it's like, I listen to my favorite song and I don't have any jets streaming over me. If I did, then I'd probably be concerned, but I mean, I don't know. I was a bit... there was one thing I was disappointed about. That the Buffets did not get to announce. Michael Buffer, who's the famous ring announcer, let's get ready to rumble!
With enthusiasm.
And then Bruce Buffer, who's the famous announcer of UFC, who's, it's time! It would have been awesome to see, there was a bet going around among others on the website, on all the betting punter websites, where Michael Buffer announces Floyd Mayweather because he's a boxing announcer, and Bruce Buffer, the stepbrother of Michael Buffer, and also the UFC announces Conor McGregor. That would have been freaking awesome. But instead, you got the guy from Showtime. I don't know who he was, but I'm sorry. Yeah, he's a decent announcer, but just a little bland. Like, it's Showtime. It's like, I don't know. I wasn't feeling it, really. Were you feeling it?
I was not feeling it.
You were not feeling it. And this was your first ever boxing match. Would you watch another one based upon what you saw?
No, I'd probably go back to UFC.
There you go. So, and you've seen how many UFC fights?
One.
You see one UFC fight live. You've basically seen a boxing match live, even though not in person. And you're saying UFC? I would probably have to agree with that, unfortunately. I'm not saying I'm not a boxing fan, but I mean, it's more about the person boxing now than it is the event, whereas UFC, you've got a different range of fighters, a different combination. Boxing, and clearly, evidently from that fight, it is based around just one person.
Yeah, that being said, though, UFC, it can be incredibly good, but you also get the fights where it is just they're not hitting each other, they're not engaging. Whereas in a boxing match, that's what they do. They train. They box each other.
Yeah.
They come in and they box.
Yes.
You rarely ever see a boxing match, I think, where somebody doesn't get hit. Whereas with all the fights in Melbourne a few years back, yes, there were a few there where they just didn't hit each other.
No, they did not.
But the boxing matches are generally broken up before they get to the point where somebody's in real danger, whereas the UFC ones tend to be let go a little bit longer.
Yes. I would definitely say, it was a joke that I was doing, and, apologise in advance for the inappropriateness of this, but I did say that perhaps if you put a wig and a bra and stuffed it, and put it on Conor McGregor, that Floyd would probably take a swing at him. Domestic battery joke.
Very good.
No.
Violence against women. Australia says no.
We do, but apparently if you're a famous boxer... I mean, that was the podcast, the first part of a podcast that I actually showed, that you listened to when you were asking what a podcast is, and that was the one Penn Teller from Penn's Sunday School quoted it, and basically, because the Pacquiao and Mayweather fight had just happened, and he quoted, Penn in the comedic fashion said, you know what, Mayweather just does more. And he made direct reference, and in the comments I'm about to say, just sort of probably badly quoting his podcast, he said, when Pacquiao was done for the day, he was done, he rested up. But when Mayweather was done, done training, done same amount of training, but when the training day was done, he wasn't done yet. He'd go home and he'd beat the shit out of his wife. And then when the cops came, he'd take a swing at the cops. It's like, you're not laughing because you're down and nervous. I didn't say it. Penn Teller did. Not Penn Teller. Penn Jillette. See, I'm still bad with names, but I'm good with faces. But that was the one where he was quoted as saying, I'm tired, I just need someone to hold me and caress me and, tell me that I'm going to win. It's like, wishing isn't enough. You have to do more. Okay. And proceeds to beat the living fuck out of the wife of his children. And that's why he's American hero. Because unfortunately Mayweather has had a bit of a history of spousal abuse, domestic battery and violence, which is ironic considering the way that he does fight in the ring. And I'm sorry, but that's what will always give me less respect for Floyd than I ever will for Conor, because, you say what you will say about both fighters, they're both very much the same. They're basically gallivant around, exploit the fact that they got a lot of money and spend lavishly and, the best of everything, best of this, best of that. But I don't believe, as of this podcast at the very least, that Conor has taken a swing at his girlfriend or any significant other in his past. But, you know, you could say, oh, past is past, get over it. It's like, okay, I will. But the amount of money that they both made, $300 million for Floyd Mayweather, $100 million for Conor McGregor. How much money do you think, because, you know, Floyd Mayweather has had a past where, you know, domestic battery, whatever, you know, a guy like him say, you know, admit I did wrong, and then even pledge a certain amount of money to women's shelter or, you know, to battle against domestic violence. How much money do you think he did donate? Or would have donated out of that?
None.
Probably none. And that could be wrong, and I hope I am, but as of this podcast, none. But then at the same time, Conor McGregor, a guy who basically did not work. He was living off welfare to live his dream of becoming a fighter. And he made it. He was one of the very few to slip through the cracks and make it. How much money do you think he gave back to the government from his social welfare? Do you think he's donated any?
I doubt it.
I mean, maybe we could look that up. Do you think that he's given to any other prosthetic?
Prosthetic?
What's the word I'm trying to use? Any
charity?
Any future fighters, I'll say. Prospective. Is that a word?
Sure.
Yes, we'll go with that. Any fighters that are upcoming, that are in his situation, that are looking for the same kind of leg up that he got, the same kind of opportunity that maybe he didn't get that he could give someone else. Do you think he's done that? No? Out of his $100 million? Give back? Or any of the money that he's earned? No?
I don't know what his personal finances are.
So I got to say, even though I say as fighters, sure, you got to respect Floyd for his ability and his 51-0 winning streak. I say 51 because he beat his wife once. Okay, I better stop that now. 50-0, okay.
If you didn't knock her out, it doesn't count.
Yeah, it wasn't an officially sanctioned fight, so it's still 50-0. But still, you got to respect him for the fact that he has been undefeated this entire time. And okay, you know, he basically has, you know, prospered in the sport of boxing. He's done a great job. Good for him. And he's had a successful career. He's now riding off in the sunset with a perfect 50-0 record, which is the greatest undefeated record in the sport of boxing, I'm pretty sure. And then you got Conor McGregor, the notorious Conor McGregor, who will continue to fight in the UFC or wherever he's paid. He will bring up the notoriety of the sport of UFC, and he's the only person to hold 2 titles simultaneously in UFC. Good for him, although he can't hold 2 titles in 2 different weight classes, so that's why he's no longer the featherweight champion. Last time I checked, he's now just the lightweight champion. But still, good for you. You've both had your success. You both had your failures. As fighters, I respect you. As people, we need to have a discussion about that in person. And I will reserve the rest of my thoughts and opinions about that until I actually get to meet you in person, because quite frankly, you know, they're probably good people in this point in time, but they're very much the same. I'm sorry to have to say, but all about the money, all about themselves, all about fame and glory and fortune. Very selfish, and I haven't seen them give back anything of worth, you know, and help really anyone else out other than themselves, you know, unless you count the fact that, oh, well, this promotion that we did with this fight generated this much revenue for the stadium and the promoters and all the other people that were involved and the celebrities and giving them money, blah, blah, blah. Who gives a crap? The catering staff really profited from that with their inflated popcorn, beer and hot dog sales. Good for you. Moving on, because it was a fight that's everyone's going to remember, but we will probably forget, and I'm starting to forget it right now. But what's very interesting, and we spent pretty much nearly an hour, and I said fights and, you know, what's it? Big fights and comedy nights. Very short bit I will spend discussing my nights that I had that evening at a comedy gig that I was doing, which is basically where Alan and I pretty much parted ways for the day, and I went and did my thing. He went and did his thing. You know, it was a comedy night. So there was the hangover from the fight, and I guess it would have been much worse if Connor had won, because the hooligans and the Irish crowd would have probably stayed there and still been drinking. But there was still that hangover of the people that were disappointed from the fight and did not leave. They were still there drinking after the fight. So the fight, what was it like? It was 11 o'clock that the fight card started.
Yeah.
So they would have been starting at 11 o'clock, 12, 1, 2, 3. That's when the fight pretty much finished on schedule. So then 4, 5, 6, and about nearly 7 o'clock when it starts. So 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So probably about 7 hours on off drinking. And even if they just did bar hopping, wandering from one place, getting kicked out of one and going to the other, they ended up there nevertheless. The MC was either incorrectly booked or was a no-show. You know, the guy that warms up the crowd and announces the other comedians did not turn up, was not there. That is disaster in and of itself. And then there were people playing darts, and the sound tech, his name's Buck. Shout out to Buck. It's probably not his real name. He's known as Buck. Buck Buckingham. Probably not. Yeah, like I'm known as Liamo All-Star. And you're Saever. Anyway, he basically went over to them and it's like, you got to finish up your game of darts because, you know, they turn off the lights and everything for, you know, for the show. Can't play darts during the comedy show. And it's like, oh, but we're playing a game. It's like, okay, well, look, just finish up your game and then, you know, that's it. And then had to do the same with people playing pool. And he said, look, guys, unfortunately, you're going to have to finish up your game of pool because you can't play during the comedy show. And basically took offense to that. Like, how dare you interrupt our game of pool on somebody else's table? It's not our table. We reserve the right to damn well play on it if we damn well please. It was literally kind of that way because he went over and they were still playing. We were just about to get going. One of the comedians actually stepped up and did the emceeing for it. Wasn't too great, but I mean, the first time doing it, he did an okay job. But obviously needs probably... I mean, the whole thing, you can't really blame him, I guess, for stepping up. And, you know, if I were to be hypocritical and say, oh, he did a great job and not so great. We were working with what we had, and for that I'd say he did very well. Because the people playing the pool then were ushered off and they were drunk, and the people playing darts were still going, and they had to be almost forcibly removed. And then, of course, they go and they sit down and... Now they're angry and they're watching the show. And there's a couple of drunks in the crowd, like hooligans. And the comedy show had just started and the hecklers were just coming out. And the MC hadn't even really said anything yet. And they were already heckling. And one of them even actually tried to get up on the stage and take the mic and try and, you know... And then, you know, Buck was in, you know, overdrive right now. He's basically... having to go over to this person and go over to that person and say, hey, look, you know, you can't do that. You can't heckle the comedian. You can't interrupt the show like that. If you do that, we're going to have to ask you to leave. Unfortunately, not really much backup because there was no security there. Now we've got Alan's attention. He's sitting back and saying, oh, yeah, whatever. Now it's like, okay, I'm saying all this. He's like, well, at least there's security. No security, Al. We were on our own. I officially was now the security, and so was my mother, who's just out of surgery with stomach surgery, so she could take a few hits, just not to the gut. Not that I'm inferring that you should punch my mother at all. Oh, it's okay. Alan knows my mummy. She'll kick your ass.
For $100 million, I'd climb into the ring with her.
I'm not even going to call. Okay, moving on. Oh, dear God. This train has just derailed and ran into a bloody school. And it was a chemical train.
My eyes!
It was a buddy school. No, but... we had a lot of new comedians in there, and it was a rough crowd. They weren't really giving a few people a chance. And, you know, the older comedians that had been there for a while who had, they were trying some new material. The crowd just, there were a few people in the crowd that just weren't having any of it. And they were a very hard crowd to budge. Like, if it wasn't funny, they just weren't going to be polite at all. Like, these people were interrupting. They're full-on hecklers, full-on drunken hecklers. And fast forward, because one of these hecklers turned out to be a stand-up comedian himself. Now, I've experienced 3 bad comedians now. I'm not going to name the names because, 1, I don't know their names, and 2, because, look, believe in giving everyone an opportunity. But the one that you saw the last time I was at Stone's Corner, and no, we're not talking about me, although I will admit that night I did do a routine that was a bit more too much of a story than a routine, but still got some laughs. But I mean, even Alan would say, nah, probably not your best stuff, and maybe not do that again. See, he's smiling because it's like, yeah, look, I'll be polite and say you did all right, but if you were a full-fledged comedian and I paid to see you, I'd be asking for my money back.
I've only actually seen you once.
Yeah, and
that was that time.
Well, you saw the clip I showed you on the computer of the other stand-up routine I did.
Yes.
The John routine.
Yes.
But apart from that, and LA. But
oh yeah, you did it in LA. I saw that one too.
And that's where we saw the worst comedian that we'll ever see. The guy with the microphone down his throat, talking about his dick. But I guess the chronology of these podcasts, I'm putting this one before the America ones, even though I was going to put them after my introduction podcast. So sorry, I know I said I was going to put the podcast in. The America ones will go next week, even if there's a catastrophic... even if I lose my ability to speak, and there's a catastrophic event that occurs in human history that must be discussed. I have 3 weeks of the US trip, and now Alan's like, get away from me. So I'm like spitting all over myself. But yeah, this guy, because we had the guy that you saw that got blasted off stage because he was just kind of running afoul and kind of really getting filthy in his material. The guy in LA, which we just mentioned, who basically, it's just not the worst one we ever say. So this guy still wasn't the worst.
No.
Well, you wouldn't know. You weren't there.
No.
But he was drunk, and I will say that he was talking about his cat a lot, and maybe the only evidence that he likes pussy. I'm just saying. He got blasted off stage because this guy, you're probably saying, why am I bagging this comedian? Well, 1, I didn't mention his name because I don't want to, because I don't know his name. 2, because this is a comedian in an open mic venue that is heckling his fellow comedians. That would be like you going to your job and bullying your fellow workers and freaking hitting them in the back of the head with a freaking keyboard. That'd be like me going into any one of my jobs, if I were to go into the acting gig and say, where's my water? Fire that guy. I'm not at that stage yet, but still, I'll go into my day job and start kicking dogs in the face that aren't attacking me or anything, and punching old ladies in the face because they're asking me about their utilities and why they have to pay so much. But it was just really disrespectful, and fact is that you just don't do that. Especially if you're a fellow comedian, you're heckling other comedians. That's just stupid. And, Alan's even got nothing to say. He's just that angry right now. He's like, damn this guy, I'm just going to sit here and say nothing and let me do all the talking again. I never usually talk this much. But then when I turn on the microphone, it's like you become me, I become someone else.
You bottled up aggression. And...
Yeah, it's like, what the hell is wrong with you, you stupid prick? But then...
What you should do is you should take this microphone and put it in your car.
Oh, I've had thoughts about that, but I think that's my opinions of mankind unleashed in that little box of a car of mine. One of several. Yeah, I own lots of cars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Jay Leno, almost.
Yeah.
If Jay Leno owned 5 Honda Preludes.
Yeah, I'm down to...
3.
3, yeah. But I have owned 5 in my time. One was destroyed, one was sold. Yes, but we got up and, you know, it was an interesting night because it did start to get better from there because he had one new guy who, I think it was his first time doing Stone's Call, maybe his only, I think it was his 5th routine or something. I don't know, it really doesn't matter. And then I was up. And also because it was an interesting night because we had open mic comedians who were no-shows as well. So instead of me going 3rd last, I ended up being the 2nd last, which was great because that's one more away from actually closing out a show, which is decent. Last time I did that was in LA, but yeah, I closed out a show in LA. What can you say that you did in your career? Oh, it's hilarious. But it was an old routine that I did, and it was probably a half and half routine. The second ever routine I did, which consisted of probably a little bit of ad-libbing, a little bit of Mother's Day, and probably 2.5 minutes of the actual topic of the routine that I was focused on. And then I tried to extend that to a full-fledged routine, just the topic of discussion, which was related to marriage equality, and, you know, also another bit, which I'm not going to say it here. If you want to hear it, come and see me at, at one of the comedy gigs, place where I do comedy. But yeah, I tried doing it on one other night, the second version of it. Kind of made it worse. Kind of, instead of making it better, I made it worse. And considering the first time I did that routine, it was excellent. It was good. Got a laugh out of the crowd. My second ever routine got me shooting right up in there. This one may have, wouldn't say put me back, but didn't really do me any favors. Still got a half decent response from the crowd, but at the same time, there was a heckler in that crowd, and he took a shot at me. I gave it back to him, and then he pouted the rest of the time, and then spoke to his mate, and they were talking at their table, which is a disruption and a distraction in the show. Not for me, but for the rest of the crowd. If you've got people talking in the crowd, it takes away from the show. Like, if people are talking while you're doing a routine, you know, the conformity of mankind, people probably think, oh, well, he mustn't be that good, you know. But the routine that I did in LA, which was semi-decent as well, you know, still a routine I was working on. I was going to put that into a 5-minute routine, but then I was doing it to myself and figuring it's not really working. And you would even say, well, it was good in the beginning. I only had 3 minutes. And the stuff that worked in that routine I kept. The stuff that didn't I threw away. I combined 2 routines together, and I tried it out at one venue. It did brilliantly. And that was before one of the other sound tech guys. And this was the second time I performed it, and I was still perfecting it. But I can safely say that it was, even though I kind of hiccuped in the middle and I forgot one of the words that I was using to describe it.
Shocked.
Summons was the word. I forgot the word. It was towards the end. But still, there was an open opportunity for a heckler to just drill right into me, and they didn't take it. And that's a good sign. When you've got drunken hecklers in the audience and they leave you alone, you know you've done a very good job because you've even impressed them.
Well, they felt sorry for you.
Well, they could have, but it was probably the best one that I've ever done. And I did the routine again. I got to say, it got a good response, and I'd say I probably got one very perfect 5-minute routine, or good enough that if I had to do an hour special, a DVD special, I could fill 5 minutes and say that's a good 5 minutes. Just got to work on the other 55 for the future. But it was an interesting night, and like I said to Alan, because he didn't show, because I didn't expect him to. I was like, because like you see the fight, that's all we need to see.
I got my free fight.
You got your free fight. It's like, see you, bitch. No, but you were busy as well, and I was doing my thing, and I think it was probably good, because if he'd been that night, it would have been just uncomfortable until the very end, where it was actually very good. It's like a roller coaster, The dip goes right down, but it was sort of exciting because then it's like, ah, and then you go up and they're like, woo! And that's pretty much that night. It started off scary, and by the end of it, it was very good. And, there was the guy that was after me who also put on a good performance. And it ended up being a very, very interesting experience and a very decent one as well. But yeah, but still all related to the day and the fight, the carryover. I'm probably prattling along right now and thinking to myself, and Alan's thinking the same, why the hell are we still discussing things? That's enough. We're at 1:15 almost, which is probably the longest podcast that we've ever done, ever. So I need to stop it, because we've been going for too long, haven't we?
Yes.
I've been talking for the last 15 or so minutes about my comedy and that, and Alan's like, you know what, just shut up and let's play some Tekken. Oh, but you know what? Thank you very much, everyone who did download and listen to this podcast. If you're still with us, next week I promise the people that wanted it, that need it, or you just don't care about it, I'm putting it out anyway, the US trip. It's a 3-part series, so that will fill up the next 3 weeks. It chronicles our trip from our perspective, and there's also the US tour video series, which is 10-day tour USA 2017, which I've got on my YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe to that. Don't let Alan be the only subscriber to my channel. Not even my mother subscribed to my YouTube channel. Oh, but yes, it's got a few views. Maybe it'll pick up, maybe it won't, but in any event, your name is Saever, or Alan, or whatever it wants to be. What should we call you on the outro?
I want to be Shirley.
Okay, this is Shirley and I'm Laverne. Oh, dear. But anyway, my name is Liam, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!
Bye.